Hello everyone, welcome back to another Commander Top 10 video. I am Void and we have a ton of awesome cards from Commander 2018 to go over. It's been out for a couple days as of the making of this video, so I've had the chance to familiarize myself with some of these cards just to see how they play. Maybe not the perfect judgment of these cards yet, so cut me some slack. As always, we're going to start off these videos with the honorable mentions, and both of them are going to be Planeswalker Commanders. Saheeli the Gifted and Estrid the Masked, because even though I think Saheeli is really good and Estrid is kind of creative in terms of what you're capable of doing with both of these, Saheeli may very well be one of the strongest cards in the set and should probably be in the top 10 for that reason. But the way I do my top 10s, if you're a longtime viewer of my channel, I tend to go with more creative, not necessarily more powerful options. And I'm more a fan of practicality, something that is going to be more ubiquitous. So while Saheeli is pretty strong, not necessarily something that's going to be interesting for me. And Estrid just seems like a commander where you want to go in different directions. She really comes off as being as more of an aura-based commander, which is pretty good, but also a combo commander. So she's a little bit all over the place. She does have the potential to combo, I will say that, and be powerful, but it does take a lot of setup. It's not going to be a Teferi Temporal Archmage. Now we go on to the actual top 10 here. We have number 10, Xantcha Sleeper Agent. She's definitely one of the most creative cards in this entire set, especially as a commander option. You have the ability to kind of play Curse, but if you have played Curses before, it's not the easiest thing to do in a multiplayer game, so it does take a lot of effort and a lot of setup just to make sure you can put yourself in a position to win over your other opponents. But the creativity and design here, it's not too overpowered. It's just 2 life and a card every single time you activate that ability, and it does cost 3 mana, which can be substantial. And I don't like bullying people, so I'm probably not going to go all out and just dump all my mana into this, but there are definitely going to be friendships ruined because of her. Then we have number 9, we have Tuvasa the Sunlit. Now, out of all of the commander options in the Bant enchantment deck, Tuvasa is probably the strongest to me. Her card draw is there. It's not going to be like Kestia, where you can draw a bunch of cards, but the strategy is going to be much stronger. You can go with Voltron and knock a player out of the game pretty easily. There are a ton of ways to get enchantments out of there, and you could probably throw an Estrid, and you probably would, into this kind of deck just to give totem armor to your Tuvasa, or any other creature for that matter. Drawing 1 card after you cast your first enchantment is pretty strong. It's consistent and reliable. Number 8 is Varina Lich Queen. This is kind of like my argument for why Edgar Markov last year was really good. Introducing another color into a tribe is very awesome. It gets players more interested in that tribe. You can make the argument that zombies already had a ton of support and didn't really need any more, but this was more or less just so people could play with the Amonkhet zombies that were in white. I believe there was an Amonkhet zombie lord who was both black and white, so with Varina you're able to take advantage of that now. But overall, not a very unique strategy, just drawing cards off of your zombies attacking, and you can make more zombies from your graveyard by using it as a resource, exiling cards away. Number 7 is Brutaclad Telkor Engineer, another very creative commander option that you can go with. I would say the support commanders, the backup ones, whatever you want to call them, from the artifact deck are more interesting than Saheeli herself, because you have a way to manipulate creature tokens, not just artifacts in general, but any sort of fun, weird, like a Desolation Twin token, something that you can make all of your other tokens a copy of, has a lot of potential to be explosive. Whether you want to go with an artifact sub-theme or whatever, tokens are definitely the way to go. And think about all the cards like Brass's Bounty, Curse of Opulence that can get you other tokens. It doesn't have to be creature tokens, it could just be any token. Some really cool interactions there. Number 6 is Tawnos Urza's Apprentice, another very creative commander option. Again, proving that the artifact deck has more interesting commander options aside from Saheeli. So if you're not really interested in buying the deck because of her, you probably would because of these 2 that I just mentioned. But Tawnos has a ton of potential, copying an activated or triggered ability from an artifact you control for just 2 mana is pretty cool. It could be triggered, so Paradox Engine, you get to copy that, get more untapping, or it could be something like a Mindslaver, really devastating if you're able to take control of 2 players. Yeah, it doesn't copy mana abilities, that would be really busted if he did, but there are definitely going to be combos associated with him, especially when it comes to that Paradox Engine I mentioned. So while he can be fun and creative, he's also capable of being kind of competitive. Number 5, we have Lord Windgrace. I really do like him. He's very boring, I would say, compared to previous commander options I mentioned, but sometimes being boring is okay if you're incredibly consistent, and what he does have is a very consistent engine. His plus is very good. You get decent card draw. You get to fill your graveyard with lands, so his minus is even more viable. You get to bring back 2 land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield, not tapped, so you could potentially ramp that turn into other awesome spells. But that's exactly what you want to do. You want to get more land drops, and then you want to play something massive like a Torment of Hailfire. Making usefulness out of all of the lands that you get. You're having a ton of mana on your board. You better use it. But if you get his plus up there, you can then ult him and basically take down the 6 permanents that you like the least. And then you get 6 2/2 Forest Walk tokens. Who really cares about those though? E is perfect for control. That's exactly how you should play this deck. Combining aspects of something like the Gitrog monster with something like Omnath Locus of Rage, it's exactly what this deck was meant to be. So while he may not be the most interesting commander from this set, he may end up being one of the most consistent ones. Number 4, we have Yuriko the Tiger's Shadow. Definitely a major request from the community, a blue-black ninja legend that's actually playable as a commander because of the commander ninjutsu. Before ninjutsu, you couldn't play any of them from the command zone. They had to be in your hand in order to use them. So Ink-Eye, Servant of Oni, while not a bad commander option, not one that you're going to take advantage of her ninjutsu ability for. But Yuriko has a pretty deadly trigger, kind of like the rest of that deck, where the top deck matters. If you're able to manipulate it, a huge payoff is there for you. You have something like Temporal Trespass, which is just insanely overcosted, or Treasure Cruise, or any of those Aftermath cards from Amonkhet. The total CMC of those cards can be really crazy, so that's a ton of life loss for your opponents. In the rest of the deck, you're pretty much just going to be playing unblockable creatures, just going to make it easier for you to get out your Yuriko or other ninjas. Not to mention, we do have cards that can make all of your creatures ninjas, so yeah, pretty decent. Number 3, we have Treasure Nabber. Whenever an opponent taps an artifact for mana, you're going to gain control of it until the end of your next turn, so you get a whole turn to use it. Just a 3-mana goblin. Whatever deck you want to throw this into, could be chaos, it could be a good deck, it really doesn't matter. Everybody uses artifact ramp, or at least most people do. Maybe not in elves, but just about every other deck does. So you're going to really convince them not to use their artifact ramp, because whenever they do, you're going to gain control of it. So their soul rings, their Gilded Lotus, their signets, anything like that, and you could have a massive turn your next turn until you do have to give them back. But just a great hate card. I love hate cards like this. So underrated. It has the potential to be pretty nasty in Commander, and it's also extremely creative because we don't really have anything like this. Then number 2, we have Windgrace's Judgment. Like I mentioned before, I am more practical. I do appreciate creativity, but I do like good quality cards that give you value for the mana that you put into them. Windgrace's Judgment is definitely one of those cards. For any number of opponents, you destroy a target non-land permanent that player controls. So it doesn't have to be all of your opponents. So if you want to be political, you want to save one of your other opponents, or maybe just not pick on them, you can choose only 2 or only one of your opponents and destroy those non-land permanents. Some people mention that that's part of the theme of the land deck, was just destroying non-land permanents, but it's a very good card in black-green removal, or he also had things like Maelstrom Pulse, Abrupt Decay. This definitely brings some more control to black-green beyond just that targeted removal where you can only really target one thing. This is going to be a staple. It's the only reason why I put it higher on this list, because across the board, I would find it hard to believe that black-green decks won't be considering this card more so than a lot of the other cards in this set. Doesn't really matter what type of deck you play, creature based, it could be Marin, you're still probably going to want to play a card like this, or it could be Control with Lord Windgrace and you're still going to play it. I mean, it's a perfect card. And then number 1, we have Aminatou the Fate Shifter. Now, out of all of the commander options, to be honest, in my opinion, Aminatou is the strongest. I don't know if any commanders from this year are going to be capable of playing in the competitive EDH environment, so we're just going to assume for now that Aminatou is going to be the most dominant from the set. You have so many synergies that you can fool around with, so she does have creativity on her side. Her plus is the whole top deck matters thing, where you can set yourself up with an awesome miracle, but it's even stronger if you want to go with scrying, because you can take whatever bad card you put on the top of your deck and then immediately just put it on the bottom. So if you just want to +1 and not have to worry about your next turn's draw, you can definitely do that. But really, the strength of Aminatou is her minus, where you can just exile another permanent you own and then bring it back, getting that ETB trigger of whatever card it is. So powerful. There's so many good enchantments, artifacts, creatures, and even lands that you can get a ton of value out of. It could be other planeswalkers, so you can reset their loyalty. You could even play something like Venser, the Sojourner, or Kaya Ghost Assassin. Those two are really cool in the deck because they also kind of do a similar thing. You could definitely play a Super Friends style deck just because of that alone. But when you keep in mind we have a ton of awesome creature ETBs in Esper colors, I mean, you're talking about Magister Sphinx, Rune-Scarred Demon, Brago King Eternal. I mean, talk about Brago, also capable of resetting your planeswalker's loyalty. That's really devastating, getting more uses out of their abilities in a single turn. Just a ton of potential all around for this deck, whether you want to go with ETBs or you want to play this in more of a chaotic strategy because of her ult. Her ult is also really cool. If one of your opponents to either your left or your right are really dominant, they have an awesome board state. All you really have to do is get to her ult and then take all their non-land permanents. That'll set you up perfectly. Overall, though, I think she is probably the most interesting Planeswalker commander from this set, even if she isn't the strongest commander outright. But anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what your favorite cards from this year's commander set were. I'm Void. You all have a wonderful day. Signing off. See you all next video.